Can you? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Atlas Leadership Webinar. We are so glad to have you all here today. We'll just go
Hi,
ahead
everyone.
and give everyone another minute to come in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. All right, I still see some more people loading in here.
Okay.
So we'll be getting started in just a few moments.
Exciting. It's going to be good to talk to everybody.
Can you see the screen?
I can perfectly.
Okay, good. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for another Atlas Leadership webinar. This is a webinar put on by both Onboard and Govenda. And it's, as I said, it's another session in our Atlas Leadership series where we really talk about, thought leadership ideas and trend ideas and industry thoughts for everyone here in board governance. So again, thank you for joining us. Going Paperless, tips for transitioning to a board portal. And we will be joined in just a couple minutes. I will hand it over to Simone Bellamy, who is our guest today. We're very happy to have
Hello,
her.
everyone.
Say hi, yeah. There's Simone. So in just a couple minutes, she will be leading this presentation and giving you lots of great information about going paperless and transitioning to board portals. All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. All of you are muted by default. It's just a setting we have here on our webinar platform, but please, we want you to be engaged and involved. So feel free to put any and all questions in the Q&A box, add comments into the chat, and we will address them as they come along. And then please hold on at the end for just a quick 15-second survey, just to let us know how we did, so we can keep bringing you all webinars that you want and thought leadership that you really want to learn about. Okay, so before we have Simone here, just a quick couple of words about Govenda and Onboard. So Govenda is a part of Onboard now, and what both products and brands do is we design digital experiences to make them simple, secure, and effective for our board members, governance teams, and board professionals. So we serve as a total 6,000 board-led organizations. Onboard is used in over 100,000 meetings per year. We've got well over 150,000 users at this point, and we are global in 60 plus countries. And this is a saying that we like to share, and it's how we think of the product for our customers. There are 3 types of board meetings: the board meeting that you're prepared for, the board meeting that you had, and then the meeting that you wish you had. So we always aim to have our customers and our users have the best meeting possible, the one that they prepared for. All right, so just a little bit about our wonderful, wonderful guest today, Simone Bellamy. She has partnered with 8 presidents in healthcare and higher education organizations to advance their governance programs. So lots of wonderful experience there. Served as a governance professional for 3 different hospital systems and used 4 different portal providers in all of her experience. And impressively managed 100 board related meetings on an annual basis, which that's a lot of meetings. Also has contributed to multidisciplinary teams through those board portal transitions. So she is an absolutely wonderful person to be here with us today to talk about going paperless. So Simone, welcome, and we will take it away from here.
Margot, thank you. At first I want to start with thanking on board and Govinda and Margot Alquist for this chance to spend this power hour with you and talk about board portals. When Margot and I first talked, we talked about the fact that it was a statistic that she gave me that was really interesting that I didn't know. She said 73% of organizations don't have a board portal, which I found really fascinating because I had been working with board portals for a really long time. And I just made the now I know assumption that many individuals or many companies had them. So I was surprised to hear that statistic, but I was also excited at today because I imagine that in the online room that we're in, that there's a segment of the individuals who belong to that 73% that are here today. And I have an opportunity to talk to you about what it is to have a portal, how it can change your productivity for the positive, and help you to do more in your individual practices. Also in the room, I imagine that I have some new transitioners, and that's a really cool place to be. You've invested in a portal, and you're looking possibly to how to transition it in the most effective way. Possibly want to do some training on the portal, and possibly want to partner with your organization or your staff to just have a better overall experience for your board members and for your individual practice as a governance professional. And then I imagine somewhere sprinkled in here is the experienced user like myself. And as they say on social media, you may be here just for the comments, but I think I'll have something for the experienced user as well. um, and we can talk about that towards the end of the my presentation, but I do have something for everyone. So one of the things that Margot discussed, and I think it's most important, is on the first slide about my background, is that I had an opportunity to work with the organization that had 100 meetings per year. And I think what's significant about that particular aspect of my background in this particular presentation is that that 100 meetings per year was not paperless. It was not using a board portal. The experience there was that I was making 45 books, board books, a month just alone for the board meeting. I had the responsibility of collating 300 and 400 sheets of paper into 45 binders that were on average about 4 inches thick. I had the to work with office services to collate, to make tabs, to make covers, and to ultimately FedEx all these documents out overnight. So it was not an easy task. Margot, you can go to the next slide. And this is what I look like. So this was my life for a number of years. And it was that way until I actually had the opportunity to attend my first governance professionals conference. And at that conference, it happened to be a board portal provider that had a lounge. And I visited that lounge with about 50 some odd so other governance professionals. And I was just in awe to hear this board portal company talk about the fact that they were going to get rid of paper, and that they had this magical way of us governance professionals not having to contend with the amount of paper that we were dealing with on a monthly basis. And when I left that, I actually went up to the portal provider after it was over, and I said, now let me make sure you're telling me what you're saying. You are going to have assist me to get rid of the amount of paper, the volume that we have in our offices. And she said yes. So the aspect of taking that portfolio of information back to the office was like almost like me having a golden ticket and getting into the chocolate factory. So I knew when I returned to work, and the excitement that I had about the board portal, it wasn't going to be implemented just because I said so. I needed to go into the aspect of talking to leadership about the board portal in the aspect of delivering data, the cause. So I sought out to determine how much it was going to cost us, or how much it costed us annually to collate the information that we were collating, the binders, the shipping, even my hourly wage of putting 45 binders around a huge conference table and collating those documents. And it turned out to be about $20,000. And back then, and even now, was still considerable amount of money. So long story short, I was able to get my board portal. And since that time, I've noticed so many different benefits, and these are some of the benefits. One, as I said, it reduced the amount of paper chase I had. The other part is it increased my productivity and improved my time management because the time that I was spending around that table collating and putting those books together and shipping them out, that was non-existent now. And it also improved my document management retention. Actually, that particular aspect of my practice in the board office went through the roof. If you can only imagine that for a state entity, and that's what it was at the time, if I was to get a request for minutes, we have something called the Open Public Meetings Act, and it just simply means that someone has requested something at a state level or in through an entity, and they that the governance professional needs to provide, and often it would be years and years of minutes. That particular one action would take me going to a file cabinet, pulling out 3 years of minutes out of folders, copying them, and putting those folders back and then mailing that information once it was approved for mailing back to the original requester. Right now in my office, the aspect of document retention, I can literally put my hands on 7 years of minutes and provide it to a requester if I needed to, probably in about 15 minutes, if that long. So these are some of the benefits, and also the another benefit, as we said earlier, with the $20,000, it was going to decrease our organizational costs. Margot, you can go to the next slide. So additional benefits, we've moved a lot from the aspect of solely using paper. Even if you don't have a portal, it may be another method that you're using to send information to your board. Some may be using an email method where you send a PDF. I've been there too, where you send 5 PDFs, 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5. And they may be sending through mail or into office. But I think in this day and age, and I won't go into the myriad of cybersecurity incidences, either in business and in personal, that the world has been subject to of late. But it almost seems like the person in the board office now or your organization now has to even ask yourself, can you afford not to have a portal? Margo, next slide. Thank you. Thank you. So the other benefit that I found in having a portal was technological advance. So as a governance professional, I believe we had an opportunity to steward technology in so many different ways. And one of the reasons why I picked this particular image is because it's not as if that an album is not still really a cool way of doing things, but this slide shows the progression between people in our music. We all love music in some aspect, right? So the aspect of using an album is an experience in itself, and all these ways that we've experienced music that come up right up to today where you can use your personal device is nothing more than a change in us having a different experience, and that's more customized and more personalized and more user friendly to us. And in the same way, a board portal is the same way. Your board members have experienced getting a book that has paper in it. They've experienced getting possibly a PDF or Adobe PDF portfolio through possibly through email or a large file server and looking at it electronically. And the next step to that, or to make a more enhanced experience that we can offer, is really a board portal. It's just showing that particular progression. Margot, next slide. So I wanted to stop for a second because I think it's important we talked about the 73% earlier that don't have a portal. And maybe this aspect of this conversation is starting to have you think about, okay, even if I wanted to consider a board portal, I hope the first thing I mentioned that you understand that you may have to make the case for it. For mine, it was the cost savings. For you, it may be some other things that come into play that you speak to leadership about, and you start this particular conversation. But one of the things that's important is when you're thinking about it is selecting a provider. And even when you're thinking about it, it doesn't mean that you can't take the time to talk to a number of providers. I think sometimes when we go through this process, we don't understand that we can interview, right? One of the things that my organization did or I led was interviews with portal providers. And it was myself, and of course, I invited the chief information officer and the chief information security officer. And that's important because we as governance professionals, we know our practice, right? We know how to steward technology. We know that what we need in our particular offices. But when it comes down to a portal, the CISO or the CIO is going to be that expert in the room. That one is going to talk about those nuances for a portal that speak to particularly security and other things for implementation that'll make that implementation safe. The other thing that you want to talk about while you're in that interview when they show you what they got, right? Is cost and the number of licenses. A lot of the cost surrounding a board portal is going to be based on a number of licenses. For the example, the company that I work for our base cost, we received 100 licenses. So anything over that 100 could be kind of costly, but this is the conversation that you have with the board portal provider. There's also, as we said earlier, one of the benefits is the security that the board portal offers. You want to talk to them about actually what that security is and how they provide it. An interesting one or interesting facet that came up in the interviews that I conducted was data ownership and transfer. So sometimes we don't talk about the end of the thing in the beginning, but this is something that I did do in that particular meeting, in meaning that we would not want to change a board or provider after we've had a relationship with them, but it does come up. I've had a instance where I was with one board or provider with a company and we had to change that board provider, and the question was, hey, who owns our data? If we've invested 8 years of time with this board portal provider, who owns the data at the end? And if we end our relationship, how do we get our data back? How do we transfer it back? How do you give it to us? Do you give it to us on 10 million CDs? Or how exactly does that work? It's a really important question. The other thing you want to look for in a board portal is robust reporting features. There's so many features that board portals have now that they didn't have years ago. One of the ones, and I'll give an example of, is attendance. If you work with a board, one of the things that's important is that your board members attend. They're there to provide governance, and one of the aspects are that they attend meetings on a regular basis. And I love the fact that the board portal can track attendance, and actually give you a report on that. And it's not like we're saying to the board member, listen, we know you didn't come, right? We need you here. But it's just a tool where if you needed to, you could have a conversation with a board member about, you're the leader of the organization or in that role, and we really would like to have your input on these things that are strategic to the organization. The other thing you want to look at is user-friendly interface for the end user. And the end user is two-part. You're the end user too, as the person who's in using the portal. So navigating the back office or customizing features for your board, you want to know what those are. And of course, the board members, you want things to be user friendly for them. You want that interface and them navigating, seeing the board book and the meeting book as easy as possible. And the last thing I'm going to say, and this is definitely not the least of them, and there are more, but it's timely technology to updates. So you want a board portal provider who's going to listen to you, right? There may be fat aspects of the portal that you say, hey, it would be great if we had this, or hey, it would be great if we had that. The board portal provider can should listen to his constituency, and they have these updates that come pretty often. You don't want a provider that's going to be kind of left behind with technology. Thanks, Margot. So this is one of my favorite quotes by Steve Jobs, and it just simply means that even though I find that governance professionals are offices, they can be staffed pretty lean. You can have at one point it was just me in the office. You have two, you can three, five, depending on how large your board is. But in this process of transitioning to a governance before a board portal, you're not in this alone. So the aspect of working on the portal and leading a transition, I found that it wasn't a solo player sport. I found that there were key players that are going to contribute to that particular process. When you look at a board portal, when you start using one, it's about the output and it's about the input. And for most governance professionals, our lives, our work lives are like a cycle. We usually obtain our information from the cycle of a committee meeting or a series of committee meetings occurring. Those committee meetings happen. For example, your finance committee meeting happens. and then a finance committee develops those items for approval that the board needs to see. So those individuals that contribute to that process are the individuals that you would, as a governance professional, when you have a portal, partner with to make sure the input is just as much as a quality type document as the output is. And those particular groups are your committee leads, which are the vice presidents. It would be the CFO for the finance in my organization. It would be your vice presidents, their assistants. I consider them committee liaisons. It would be consultants. We have outside consultants at my current company that have been with us for years. They are like standing individuals at those particular committee meetings. So it was really a partnership between them and their assistants as well when I started transitioning to a board portal. So it's really interesting. I thought when I obtained a board portal that everything was going to be, rose-colored glasses. But I found that when staff started to um, hear that we got this portal, the information, they really felt like they had more time. And it does make you feel like that. It makes you feel like this is magical thing that you can just upload things into in a drop of a hat. And they really felt like that. So I felt like I was getting information rushed. I felt like I was getting information that wasn't as quality level as I would have envisioned that it would have been. And it really, the aspect of getting a board portal really made me start looking at the quality of the data that we were getting or the information that I was getting. I really started to think about the aspect that the board members are getting a book, right? And when you open a book, we all know the typeface is the same, the fonts are the same, the headers are the same size. And I started to look at that aspect and I developed a set of standards with the individuals that submit to the board office about how information is going to come to the board office. So one of the things, the first things that we did, we talked about our style guides. Most organizations have style guides. Sometimes they're with the media department, and they're just guides on your PowerPoints, your Word documents, your Excel spreadsheets, how they're supposed to look to ensure you have a branded look for your company. So this was the first type of conversation that we had where I said to individuals, "Hey, I know you love to use Comic Sans when you send me this information, but for the sake of us making a uniform book experience for our board members, we have to move to Arial font. And we have to have headers 14 font. We have to have the body 12 font. You have to think about the cycle of the committee meeting that I just talked about, that all these documents are coming from different places, different departments. They don't know what each other are doing. If they all are doing something differently, it can definitely slow you up in loading to the portal. And this is what you got the portal for. You invested in it because you want it to be an efficiency tool. So one of the aspects of having partnering with these committee liaisons and the committee leads and the consultants is communications. My communications about standardizing the look of the book, ensuring that documents are oriented properly, particularly PDFs. It is something special when you get into a meeting and someone has loaded a PDF that has improper orientation. An entire room go tilts their head to the side to see what you've put up there. So I've clearly communicated what those expectations were. And I also started doing something that I consider just front loading the Outlook calendars for communication in advance. So this is a really small font. But this was an email that was written in 2019 that I just wanted to share. This is where I started my conversations with standard fonts with the team, where I started my conversation with style guides and file orientations and file transmissions, even file naming, because you'll be surprised, even aspect of filing, naming a file to coordinate with the agenda will make your speed and efficiency of uploading documents to the portal really faster. And since this document is so small, I gave you a QR code. When you go through this process and you start to have these conversations with staff, through the QR code, and there's language there. It's something that you can use to kind of start off your thought process with what you may need that may be beneficial. So front loading calendars. There is a feature in a Microsoft Office. We all use it. You know, you may call it a banner, you may call it just an entry where I actually at the beginning of the year, which is rather time consuming, but give me a moment. I'm going to tell you it's worth it. For the four groups that I spoke about earlier, the committee liaison, the committee lead, the consultants, I even bring in external consultants on this and external consultants assistants for at the beginning of the year for whatever meeting we are having, they get notification on their calendars of when the information is due to me. And Marco, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. The advance notification, now this is going to vary depending on your organization. For my organization, that notification will go to the committee leads and the individuals that submit documentation to the board office. For me, for a board meeting, it's 2 to 2.5 weeks ahead. For a committee meeting, it's 10 days ahead. And this is what it looks like. So you'll see on January 9th on everybody's calendar that submits information to the board, they know that their information is due on January 9th for the January 23rd, 2025 board meeting. This message is placed on the calendars in advance for the entire year for the committee leads, the committee liaisons, the consultants, and their assistants. So delayed email gets a honorable mention here. The reason why I started using delayed email, and delayed email is exactly what's noted here. Delayed email is a feature in Microsoft Office, and it's also a feature in Google Suite. Probably using it already. And it actually allows you to delay an email up to, actually in Google Suite, you can delay an email up to 49 years. So you can send someone a message from beyond if you like. So what happens is once you set the email, you basically set it and forget it. You can open the email, set the date that you want it to come out, and it will come out on that particular date. I have the image here because this was actually started, unfortunately, during COVID, when our board had concerns or everyone had concerns about checking mail. I had a graphic artist create a graphic for each board member individually, and I used delayed email in the beginning of the year to send the individual emails, set it and forget it basically, and the email will come out on the actual birth date with the graphic. Now you may say, what does that have to do with the board portal, Simone? Well, we just talked about the fact that I set submissions dates for those four groups in the beginning of the year for the entire year. And what happens is it's on their calendar, but I can use delayed email, the example that we used earlier, where on January 9th, they received this banner on their calendar. Well, on January 10th, I'll set a delayed email for a reminder to come out. Hey, by the way, if you haven't submitted information to the board office to be loaded to the portal, it was due yesterday. I've literally been in the hallway, walking down the hallway, and someone said to me, Simone, I got your email. And I had to think for a second. I'm like, oh, the one I said 6 months ago. So it can be a really effective tool to get done what you need to get done, right? So email templates, same thing, honorable mention. Email templates are templates that you can set up with things that you say pretty normally in the email. And one of the things that I do with the portal, I am always keeping individuals on track concerning the portal. So the language that I use in the email, even the ones that I end up sending as delayed emails, I have in templates. You can have 5 templates, you can have 50 templates, you can have as many as you like in this particular feature. So I'm about to transition to those. Now, we've talked about the aspect of setting up your success as far as the input and the output of those who submit to the information to the board office and to make a great user experience for your board members by receiving quality information. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about training and what my thought process about it was about training when I first transitioned to a board portal. It was really the teacher in me that I noticed that there are a couple of types of training groups that we're going to deal with. One is the portal administrator, and the portal administrator is really a super user. That particular user has access to the back office, so to speak. They can provision. Provision just simply means that you can give passcodes. That seems to be a thing that comes up with the board members. They lose their passwords sometimes. And during the new start of the training, we did, or the training period, we like the board member to come to us, even though the portal company had a 1-800 number. The board members came to us. So we have your portal administrators who are provisioned to navigate the portal front office and back office. Those were our IT professionals that we trained. A couple of them were trained as super users, myself, and of course our chief security officer. We have the assistants, internal and external, that are assistants to the vice presidents. The reason why, and to the board as well, the reason why they're trained second is because they end up being trained a trainer. So once they're trained and the vice president is trained, they're the first line of defense, because the board office sometimes has a lean staff, as I said earlier. If their assistant knows how to navigate the portal, that vice president is going to go directly to them and they're able to assist, so the board order office won't be overwhelmed during this process. And then the other group is the consultants and their assistants. They're trained to access the portal because we provision at least one consultant on a standing committee to have access to the documents that their company needs to have access to. So aside from having a training group, you'll likely meet some tech personalities amongst your board. And some of us probably can see our own selves in these different tech personalities. Here you have the whiz kid, right? Some of my board members can navigate a portal better than I can because they have this level of comfortability with technology, didn't require much training, just said, hey, give me a password and I'll take it from here. But then you have your board member who's reluctant but willing, the one who is say, okay, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm certainly willing to try. And then you may have your board member, and I've had those that say, hey, listen, I'm good the way things are. I don't see why we're even doing this. But one key to training each one of these tech personalities is to basically meet them where they are. Next slide, Margot. Thank you. You meet them where they are. This quote says, don't push people to where you want them to be. But the key here is meeting an individual where they are. And there's a couple of ways we're going to do that in training. The key way that I found to do this is in your training offers, how you offer training. Now, one of the things is that the teacher and me, again, I am big on retention. And I'll say now, when you start your training, you may say, hey, I'm going to get this training out of the way 2 months before the board meeting, and then we're gonna launch and then it's gonna be great. Well, the truth is retention isn't at its highest when you train a ways away when they actually have to use this particular skill set. So we offer three separate trainings. We offer the one-to-one training, the group training, and the virtual training. For the virtual training, which happened on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the entire month, we also offered group training and one-to-one training a week before the board meeting. And we also offered a training the day of the board meeting that led right up into the board meeting, which was great. I'll give an honorable mention to the aspect of your hardware and your software. When you're starting to work with the board and you're starting to conduct training, it's important that you always make sure that you get your software updates. You don't want to start a training and then a software. You want to train on a latest software update that board portal has. And also that you check your hardware for your wires, your cords. In our board office, we use a iPad for every board member is at their seat. They have access to a stylus, which is part of their hardware, so they can navigate. And we also set up the PowerPoint above head, in addition to um, the actual actual overhead screen. Excuse me, Margot. Next slide. Thank you. So here's this in action. I wanted to show you, this is a really old email. It was actually from June of 2019. And you see I cover a lot of bases here. One thing I want to share during a training period, or when you're gearing up for your actual launch day, you want to keep communications to a minimum with the board. You again, you have your different personalities, your different tech personalities. Some may be a little apprehensive transitioning and you just want to cover a lot of bases, a lot of ground. So here I talk about member access. I tell them, hey, you're going to get a link, excuse me, an email that talks about registering. You got about 72 hours to register. Please register during that time. This is what your ID is going to look like. And this, once you provision, will be ready to start. And then I offer them, here's the 4 types of training you see to this arrow which says member training. I offer the training, first training, the group training on June 4th for the board members. This is a email that went to the board members. I'll offer the second group training. You see that that was on the actual day of the board meeting, 45 minutes before. And then they had independent training where they can hop on virtual training Tuesday, Thursday for the entire month and go on at their when they desire to go on. And then they had one-to-one training. And when I mentioned one-to-one training, it really was one-to-one training. I would take 2 iPads, I would take a traveling Wi-Fi system, and I would go to that board member's office and we would sit down and we would side by side, log in side by side, go through the portal. I would create a mock book so they can go through that process and feel the level of comfort, excuse me, about navigating that portal. So here we are at launch day. Launch day is an exciting time. And the one thing I can tell you about launch day, don't try to do it alone. On launch day, it was designed so that there would be activity, that the board members understood that it would be activity, but it was activity that was solely around us being mindful of them and again, meeting them exactly where they were. So, as I said, we gave a group training that intentionally was in the boardroom and led right into the board meeting so that retention is there. The present in that particular group training was those particular IT professionals that were super users. They were present in that particular group training, and we went through the group training together. It wasn't as if it was one-to-one staff for IT to one board member, but it really depends on how large your board is. As to how much staff you want, that you do want a feeling of someone not particularly waiting for assistance, but just that they see the presence in the room, that they have help. And I also would suggest that you have a password manager, and that's just an IT professional who's in the room, who his sole function is to be on a laptop and provision for passwords, because that is the number one thing that holds up progress, so to speak, is that a board member has says, "Hey, I don't remember my password, or I didn't provision myself." So I can't overemphasize this, right? Or overemphasize. When you're planning for launch day, and plan for the unexpected. One of the things that I do with our board members, one of the I mentioned earlier that some have a different level of comfort with technology. I establish up front how that member wants their experience to be. I have iPads in front of each seat. I have the option of moving the slides for that particular member, or I have some members who say, hey, just set up my iPad. I'm going to log on myself and I'll navigate. I'll follow you. 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, most members want me to do the navigation for them. And I move through those slides using the portal overhead. And of course, them seeing it on their screen because it's all linked together. And then we move forward with our particular meeting. Anything that is in that may need to be troubleshoot, the aspect of, oh, hey, I forgot my passcode in that group training leading up to the actual launch, they are given documentations inside their personal folder of what their particular password is. So in the middle of a meeting, if they forget or if they can't log on or something times out, they certainly can go on and use their passwords and get back into the system. Some board members don't like to raise their hand. They don't like to feel like they don't know something. So I put as much as their seat for them to have self-serve service, so to speak, before they seek assistance from me. Another thing I want to add about the launch day is that the IT professionals stayed the entire time for the group training to provide assistance, to make sure board members got the assistance they needed, but they also stayed 15 minutes into the actual board meeting. That way, if there was still a board member, again, we don't know, I don't know how lean or um, how staffed your board office is, but if you have a lean team, you want that assistance there just in case for the first few minutes of the board meeting to make sure everything goes okay. So, dueling laptops. This is a honorable mention as well. Now, everything you do in a meeting, especially when you are working with a portal, perhaps working with Zoom. Our teams right now are hybrid, our board meetings are hybrid. You can do on one laptop. I'm aware of that, but let me share with you. On launch day, you want to consider having two laptops. Still to this day, I still do this. So one laptop or one iPad is totally just for screen share, totally just for navigating the portal or the meeting book. Again, I shared that my screen is linked to all the iPads in the room, and I'm doing the moving of those particular that particular information that the board members are seeing. The other iPad or the other, excuse me, the other laptop is solely for me to see, can create a control panel for myself. I'm looking at the entries and the departures from Zoom. I'm looking at muting and unmuting. I'm looking at chat and hand raises. And one other thing that I find key that's for this laptop, one of the beauties of a board portal is how quickly you can make changes for a board meeting. When I, in my days of contending with paper, if there was an error in a book, God forbid, I had to actually print out another section, mail it to that member, or scan it to that member. Literally, in a board meeting, you can conduct a live update. The person or the department just needs to just only give it to me by email. And literally, while the meeting is going on, I can change out a document within that meeting book in 5 minutes. I don't want to do that on the same device that I am doing my screen share for. It's just too much activity. And on launch day, you want those two separated so you have a level of comfort in seeing everything that's happening at the same time. So I promised in the beginning of our time together that I would give some information to those who have been using board portals for a long time. It came a point where I have been using board portals for a number of years, over 10 years, and just was like, what else can I use a board portal for? And I'm going to give you an example. In many of our practices, we have interactions with auditors. It's not uncommon for an auditor to do an annual audit of whatever information they have to do. And they used to send me an email and say, "Hey, Simone, we were wondering if you can send us the minutes for the entire year, or 2 years, or 3 years, or whatever they need it for." In fact, recently, the organization that I am working for is going through a merger, and there's something called data rooms. And when you're going through a merger, you have to exchange wide volumes of information with another entity. But in this particular situation, what I found that instead of sending an email for one email of two, two of two, I could create large volumes of data rooms. So as soon as get a set of minutes approved, I am loading them into the portal. Of course, they're on my regular computer as well. I'm loading them into the portal, and I create these huge volumes of data rooms that have minutes that go back 5, 10 years. If I get a request from an auditor for a set of minutes or a series of minutes for a series of years, I can simply provision them to have access on the portal to that data set. And provision just simply means I'm giving them a password, or usually it's an auditor who is a standing auditor, and they are going in and they are looking at the information they need to look at, and then they'll email me and say, "Hey, Simone, we saw the information we needed. See you next year." So this is another aspect of using the portal in a data library to the benefit of your practice. This is a sample orientation uh, um, book that was given to one of our newest members. So as I said, our organization is going through a merger, and that merger activity, or the leading up to the mergers, there was a lot of activity, a lot of meetings that led up to this point. So when this particular board member came on board, their question was, "Hey, is there any way I can learn more about the activity before that occurred before the merger?" And I said, "Absolutely." So this is one of the robust ways that we present our orientation packages to our board members. This is a data library that has minutes going back 5 years. The board member can look at as it's little. They can look at the month before, or they can look at 5 years before, so they can see the historical aspect of how we got to be where they are with our merger. And the portal is the sky's the limit as far as the data consumption, data retention, and these things that you can do with your orders and with your board orientation. So here we are on this last slide. The excerpts from this particular presentation were taken from a book that I wrote some years ago called The Board Portal Transition Guide. And if you want more information or seek to have some more information that is a little bit more detailed and granular than what was presented here, I've provided a QR code for you to go on. I believe you can actually get it free at this time on Kindle. So I want to take a moment and thank everyone for spending this power hour with me. If you have any questions, I'll certainly take them. Hi, Margot, you're back, huh?
Hi,
Uh,
back.
I'll certainly take them.
Oh,
And
that was
is
your
there
information too. Yeah.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
If you need Margot, will these slides be up?
Yeah, we're gonna share these slides. So if you're here and you're attending, or if you know someone who registered too, we will share these slides for sure.
Okay. And my
Um,
contact information is on the slides if you
yeah,
have a quick question.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Simone. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
We do have questions.
Sure.
So Lori asked us, it appears that this type of portal may be good for larger organizations that just where you're speaking about generally. What about the small ones? We don't have staff to manage anything, but that isn't terribly intuitive. And if you can't answer that, I can talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I can talk about large or small because I think if when I first started the presentation, I talked about the fact, can your company afford not to have a portal? Because large or small, you're still dealing with security issues, right? And it really depends on how you're transmitting that information. You can be a tiny organization, and I'm making this up. Most organizations are not going to transmit PHI, which is patient health information. But if you're a small organization and you're transferring PHI and it was breached, just like a large organization, you still had a culpability of that. So, and I think board portals, for many years, I was a one woman show in our board office. I think that's why you get them when you're small, because you can navigate so much more and devote more of your time to more things. Not that you might want more work, but you can navigate so much more being a small organization when you have a portal. I think it's ideal. I hope I
Yeah.
answered that question.
No, that was a great answer. And Lori, I just will say on the Govenda and the onboard fronts, we most definitely have smaller organizations, nonprofits, all kinds of different small organizations. And actually, the portals help them to do more than
Mm,
if they were
yes.
having to gather everything and put it on paper. So the portal actually makes you more efficient, and they're made to be completely intuitive. We've got all kinds of ages and tech experience, as Simone pointed out in her presentation, of people that use it. So it is meant to be friendly for an organization like you have that doesn't have extra people in a whole governance team.
Mm.
All right. So another question, where do you think board portals will head next?
That's a great question. I've given this some thought. So I hate to be cliche, but I recently took a course in AI, and I think board portals will start to adopt and incorporate those features that that have AI features. Minutes. I mean, that's the first area where I can see that there can be most helpful. A large part of a governance professional's role is to take minutes. I mean, we that's something that we all do to memorialize the things we do, and I think AI will be more and more incorporated in the aspect of the board portal offering.
Great, thank you. Oh, we got another one. And
Mhm.
actually, while we're still answering questions,
Sure.
I'm launching the 15-second survey I told you about. So you'll
Okay.
see it just popped up. So please share your answers if you can. Okay, another question, follow-up question.
Mhm.
Some of our board members are people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. How
Mhm.
accessible are these portals? What kinds of accessibility features does software contain?
That may be more of an onboard question for you to dive into what your accessibility aspect. But what I can tell you from the training that I've given, that board portals are made to be extremely user friendly. And if they're serving on your board, they definitely will have a capacity and won't have a challenge of once you sit down, and that may require those one-to-ones that I talked about earlier, to sit down and really get a good feeling navigation for the board portal. Mark, I'll let you take the
Yeah,
other
no, that's
aspect.
definitely true. I know that both of the products, Govenda and Onboard, have accessibility elements to them. I would really encourage you to get more information from us. So if you want that, you can actually indicate that in the poll there. We have dealt with this before, but I would want another member of the team, another member of our team could get into more specifics on that.
That
Okay.
was a great question, by the way.
It is a great question. Yeah,
Very
very
great
important.
question.
Um, Anyone else have any final questions for Simone about this? And I loved the emails. That's so smart with the emails. You can
Thank you.
you could actually do some of that on these platforms if you want, because
Wonderful.
with the Microsoft 365 incorporation and all that stuff that
Very
we've
nice.
got going on. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Simone. It's
No,
been such a
thank
joy
you.
to
Thank
work
you.
with
Have a
you.
good holiday, everybody.
Yeah, and thank
Holiday
you so much for
season.
attending.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.